Assalamu alaikum. It's me, Layla Abdullah-Poulos, and I'm ready to review another book written by a native-born American Muslim woman writer. Up until this point, I've been reviewing contemporary fiction, so I decided to switch up a little bit, and I switched genres, and I chose sci-fi. The book that I chose is the Azurean Trilogy by F.A. Ibrahim. Now, notice it says books 1 and 2 here. It is a trilogy. Unfortunately, books 1 and 2 come in one book, and book 3 comes in another. And the print version of book 3 is not available, so if you want to read the whole story, you're going to need to get the Kindle version for the book. So now, the book starts off on a planet that's been colonized by humans. Earth has been ruined, and so humans have recolonized this planet, Mercia, in order to start life anew. And the story opens 350 years after the colonization. And there are 4 different regions, and based on each region, every person, all the people of that region, their hair color changed over the past 350 years. So you have some who have silver white hair, some that have blue hair, some that have green hair, some that have red hair, based on their region. And you also have different things going on, like one region is an agricultural region, another region has a lot of forestry, there's an Arctic tundra, and then there's one region that's led by this tribe, the Hooligans, who pretty much suppress every other region. So they're the ones that have subjugated all the other tribes of all the other regions. They've taken over all the natural resources on the planet, and they even have access to this one plant that can cure everything, but they don't give everyone access to it. So, and it's led by an Emperor Borsch. Now, the story opens with Borsch and his general. They are looking for some people, and the people that they're looking for are these 5 gifted people that are part of a prophecy that is supposed to bring him down. So they're basically supposed to come and bring him down. So he's looking for those people. And then switches over to the main character, Yaya. Yaya is living with her parents. She's a Muslim girl, and she lives in one of the regions. And suddenly, she's kind of thrust into this new situation because she's one of the 5 gifted people. Her brother, and 3 of her friends are the 5 gifted people in this prophecy that's supposed to bring the emperor and the hooligan down and bring peace to Mercia. Okay, so the book is sci-fi, so there's a lot of technology involved. So you have drone scanners and all types of fancy weaponry and androids and mechanical soldiers that are there to keep control over everyone. So it is packed with sci-fi. She doesn't disappoint when it comes to the sci-fi. So there are Muslim cultural references. Quranic text is used at the beginning of some chapters. Other chapters have biblical text, but a few of the chapters have Quranic text at the beginning. She does use common Muslim terms, but in English. She doesn't use the Arabic, so there's not as much Arabic integrated into it. It's mainly a lot of Muslim terms used in English in the book. She does infer that the characters use the Arabic terms, but it's not actually written in the book for the most part. Okay, the women cover, and there are some references to praying as well. But like I said, they don't use Arabic, so they don't refer to Allah as Allah. They refer to him as God or the Creator. And so, because they're in this religious setting where all the religions are coexisting, so they dialogue in English, but they do use some Muslim terms. So, for instance, they say, "Peace of the Most High be with you," or "Peace be unto you," which is a term that Muslims use. Assalamu alaikum, which means peace be unto you, but they use the English instead. And all the religions use that. So they're like this coexisting. All the religions coexist. They've decided not to allow religious differences to cause conflict. So that's one good thing, because the hooligans are the ones that are causing the conflict. So there are American cultural references. There's drug abuse. Wherever there are human beings, there's some that want to get high. So there's drug abuse. They have rival gangs. They have guerrilla resistors, okay, because you can't tell people what to do. Someone's going to resist somewhere. So they do have guerrilla resistors. And they also the author also refers to people in the book by their Earth, the region of their Earth descent, where they're descended from on Earth. So the main character Yaya and her family, they're African Americans. One of her friends is Native American descent. Another one is Latino American descent. Another one is Euro American descent, and so on. So she does refer to them by the region of their descent. One interesting gender reference that she has is that the healers are women. So with all of these tribes, they're going to different places, and people get hurt, or then the healers in those regions are mainly women. And so I found that really, really interesting, because it always feeds into this notion of women as healers that permeated through cultures, various cultures in our society. Okay, there are some issues with the book. Sci-fi is not the easiest genre to write in, so there are some issues with the book. One issue is that it's told in the first person, and there's first person does give you intimacy, but it gives you intimacy with that one character, and the quest is really being undertaken by 5 characters. So the book is told mainly from the point of view of Yaya, the main character, and that limits the amount of access the reader has to the other 4 of the gifted 5, as well as the protectors of the gifted 5 and the teachers of the gifted 5. You really don't get to know those characters. The only other characters that you kind of get an inkling and you understand into their point of view are 3, and that's the emperor himself, Emperor Borsch, his daughter, the princess, and his general Henneken. You get to know those 3 characters better, almost pretty much on the same level as the main character Yaya. But all the other characters, you don't really get to know them, because nothing's really told from their point of view too much. So you don't really get to know what's going on, and that becomes a little problematic, especially in the end as things unfold. So for instance, all of the gifted 5 had to go through a dream, and after the dream, they were given a pouch with 3 things. Okay, you only got access to the main character's dream sequence. That was it. You didn't know what the other dreams were. Okay, it's how they may have been significant to the end of the book. And you only know what's in her pouch. You don't know what's in everybody else's pouches, really. So you don't really get to see what roles those things play in the final downfall of the Houdakin Empire, until they're actually used by the characters. So that's a little problematic, because things are left a little flat that way. There's not really any excitement or any anticipation and gratification of that anticipation by learning what these things are for. Also, you don't get to what could have been very climactic scenes. They come off anticlimactic, because you don't know the characters well enough to really know what they're feeling on the inside and what they're going through. So when they're confronted during the final battles, they're left a little flat. So because the characters are voiceless, basically, it's really just only Yaya and these other 3 characters that have a voice. And so by the time you get to the point where all of these things are happening, you're left with pretty much being told what happened. You don't really get to feel it, because you don't get to connect with the characters. And that's another issue. There's a lot of telling and not much showing. And that can make a really, really good story boring quickly. Okay, especially in sci-fi. There is a need for a lot of description in sci-fi, but it has to be done a particular way. And so I consulted with Dr. Erin Young at Empire State College. Sci-fi, she's a literary theorist, and sci-fi is one of the genres that she particularly works in. And so she said a good sci-fi writer is someone who can put you into their world and reveal what is going on little by little through action and dialogue. Now, there's not a lot of action in the sense that there's action being told to you as a reader, but it's not really something that you get to vicariously experience through the character, except for Yaya. And so, as characters are going through all of this action, you don't really get to as a reader, make a connection with the action. You're just really kind of told. Okay, so even for example, one of the major scenes, thing that occurred at the end of the book, at the climax of the book, was a battle between the emperor and Cord, another character. Now you knew that Cord hated the emperor because you were told that. You don't really experience it through Cord himself. And so when the two of them start this battle, you're just really told. So the first sentence in the battle is Tio had searched all over and finally finding Borscht and Cord in an all-out throw-down fight. You don't really experience it because you're not told through the Cord senses or the Emperor senses or dialogue between the two of them what's going on during this battle, and so it's left a little flat because you don't get to experience that. Another issue that was problematic for me personally as a reader is that the author wrote everything pretty much in the past perfect subjunctive. So as a result, every page had a lot of the word had on it. And at one point, it just became very, very distracting for me. So I have an example. This is 2 paragraphs on 1 page. Our stay on the boat had been as nice as it could be. There had been food to eat, and our small group had developed a deeper sense of camaraderie. But the nights had also been drafty, and the sleeping pallets, although soft, had not been very thick. They had not done much to counterbalance the stiffness of the hard floorboards. That's the word had 6 times in 5 sentences. Okay, so at one point, it just really started, every time I saw the word had, I just had this response. I got distracted. It's like, if I see the word had one more time, I'm going to lose my mind. Is it grammatically incorrect? No. But it did serve to be very, very distracting. And so this is something that authors need to really, really think about. Their choice of words is something that they have to be really, really careful about, because as a finished product, the reader can be turned off. And so what was a good story, what I think was a good story, became muddled because of this one issue that kind of just like struck out at me as a reader. Okay. Another issue from a Muslim perspective is this whole idea of a prophecy. Now, in Islamic teachings, there's one final prophet, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and any prophecies were told through him. So any final prophecies are told through him. So this whole idea that someone's going to come to you and say, there's this gift of 5 is going to save our planet, is problematic. A Muslim generally would not buy that, and so. And the author did not let the reader know whether or not the religion had evolved to the point where a Muslim would buy that. And so that became a little problematic. Another one is the term Bismillah. Part of the story is that these people have these special powers. And the way that they engage these powers or start these powers up is by saying the term Bismillah. So they'll say Bismillah. They can shoot electric pulses out of their hands. Their eyes spin and light up and they glow and things like that. The problem with that is Muslims say Bismillah from the time they wake up and to the time they go to sleep, and all throughout the day during their prayers, before they eat, just all through the day. So, as a Muslim reader, thinking, well, how do you keep your eyes from glowing all day? How do you keep from electric pulses coming out all day? And so she kind of doesn't explain that. So it's just like a little loose end that's left. Another loose end is, where did everyone else go? I mean, the writer, pretty much, the colonization seems to be from people in America, okay, or the Americas. Well, what happened to the rest of the world? I mean, she does allude to an African, so I'm thinking, so the rest of the world may be there, but it's not clear enough for me as a reader. The other thing is, they've been on this planet for 350 years. Why in the world is the character still being referred to as African American, Latino American, African? You've been on this planet for 350 years, and you're not really referred to according to your region or even according to your tribe. You really don't know the names of the other tribes. You just know the Hootican, that's the main tribe, that the suppressors, but you don't really know too much about the names of the other tribes and how they evolved and things like that. The other thing is that she does refer a lot to American, to earthly oppressions, to draw a relationship to what happened on Earth and what was happening to the people of Mercia 350 years after they colonized Earth. And so, as a reader, I wonder, well, where are the examples of people resisting against their oppression or mercy? It's been 350 years. So they haven't had any kind of, major battles or anything like that she can draw on as well. Not saying totally take out the Earth's oppression, but you're creating this world for your reader. Your reader wants to know about what's happening what happened and what is happening to the people in that world, and so she keeps going back to Earth. Okay, so those are a few the main issues that that are in the book, and I think that a lot of them could have been resolved with a little editing. So that's one of the things about independent publishing. Editing is very expensive. If a publisher doesn't pick you up, you have to foot the bill for an editor. But editing is very important because this is the makings of a really good story, and there are just these things that are these issues have detracted from it. It's taken away from it. So it's very, very important that authors consider editing. Okay, if you get picked up by a publisher, you're lucky because the first thing your publisher does is it sends it to a content editor. So the content editor reads your story and finds all of those little holes. So why do you keep referring to people as African American? A lot of the things are being told just through this one person's point of view. What about the other characters that are part of this quest? You need to let the reader know. It would have been a bigger book, but at least the reader would know, been able to make those connections with the character. So a content editor is very, very important. Content editor looks at how your story interlocks, your multiple plot points, where your plot twists are placed. One of the things is that there's a plot twist in the book that's placed far later than it should be. Okay, so you have this one plot twist. It's not properly placed, and I'm not going to say what it is, but it's not properly placed. And so as a reader, you're just like, okay, well, that wasn't very exciting because I didn't know about this aspect of it first, and then later on it's like, boom, now it happened. So that was one of the things. So this is something that a content editor will look at and consult with you about better ways to tighten up your story. Especially it's important with sci-fi because sci-fi fans are very, very picky, and they are not kind, and they will. You need to have every little detail of this world that you built for your sci-fi novel. Your sci-fi reader needs to have access to that. If you don't give it to them, they will not be very kind. And I'm not a sci-fi fan, so that's why I'm trying to be as kind as possible. Okay. Also, copy edits. Okay, that's a copy editor looks at your grammar, your punctuation, and make sure that everything is tight. A copy editor would have said, you have had 6 times in 5 sentences. You're going to want to change that because that is very, very annoying to have that one word over and over and over again. And I know that there's this use of the passive subjunctive. I've seen it in a lot of fiction. I, as an academic, find it a little irritating. I think only because I've been hammered so much myself about using the passive voice, and using had makes it passive. I prefer active voice, so that may just be my personal thing, and it's just like popular fiction. It's not a big issue, but the usage of it so much in in a couple of paragraphs is. So this is something that editors will pick up. They are expensive, but they can tighten up your story, and they can give you a really good, finished, polished product that your reader can enjoy. And you want your reader to be able to enjoy your story. You don't want your reader to feel to regret picking up your book. It's not necessarily that I regret picking up this book, but I think it could have been would have been a better story with more description and detail, and having more of the characters, letting readers getting connected more to the characters, and some tightening up of the grammar. And so it would have been a really, really great book to read. And this is one of the reasons why I avoid sci-fi, but now I understand it. I generally avoid sci-fi because the books are usually like that thick. Okay, so, and I'm like, I don't want to read that much about one story. I want to read a nice story and go on to the next one. But now I see why sci-fi is so thick, because you really do need descriptions. So it's a good book. It's a good start to a story. I look forward to seeing a more polished sci-fi from this author. I've reviewed other books of hers, and I've liked them, so I know that she can write well. I think that she chose a very, very hard genre to write in. And I think that with a little tightening up, this book, it'll be a larger, it'll be more pages, but I think it'll be a really, really good story. So, the Azurean Trilogy by F.A. Ibrahim. And if you want to know more about the work that I do with native-born Muslim American writers and native-born Muslims, please check out my website. I will put a link in the description box. Okay, and as soon as I get another minute, I will do another book review. Okay, thank you. Assalamu alaikum.